Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. It's not a reboot, it's not a sequel, it's not a comic book movie. It's a movie that made me want to talk about movies again on YouTube. So thank you, Quentin Tarantino. And a real quick update, if you guys are subscribed to me on my other channel, John Flickinger, you might have already known this, but I was suffering from a nasty, disgusting eye infection for over a month, and at one point I almost gave up all hope and started making videos in a Spider-Man suit to hide my disgusting face from you. But I quickly gave up that idea. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood follows Rick Dalton, played by Leonardo Dicaprio, who's a fading actor in 1960s Hollywood, struggling to stay relevant, and Brad Pitt plays his best friend and stunt double, Cliff Booth. Let me tell you why I'm a huge fan of Tarantino movies. It's because he makes the movies that he wants to make. They're not ripped apart and overly produced by some studio. The movie that you watch on the screen is the movie that he wanted you to see. He also has this amazing ability to make dialogue-driven scenes that typically serve no purpose to the film's narrative highly entertaining to watch. Not many directors working today can make a conversation about a quarter pounder with cheese memorable 25 years later.
Royale with cheese.
Royale with cheese.
That's right.
And this film is a testament to that. This is Tarantino's love letter to the golden age of filmmaking. This movie perfectly captures that Hollywood era that Tarantino later went on to stylize a lot of his movies after. Movies like Kill Bill, Django Unchained, Pulp Fiction. At times, this movie almost feels like a culmination of 3 different movies combined into one movie. It's almost like Tarantino had ideas for 3 different separate scripts and said, hey, how can I combine all 3 of these things into one movie and make it make sense? And that's sort of what you get with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. One of my favorite things about watching this movie in the theater was how it transcended me back into 1969 and truly immersed me into this environment and this story. The settings, the location, and the scenery, it looks completely perfect. Now, very much like his previous film, Inglourious Basterds, this film's subplot, or backbone, that ties everything together, is based on historical and tragic events, and with that, this film features Charles Manson and his cult followers who are responsible for the death of Sharon Tate, and much like Inglourious Basterds, factual historic liberties were taken where they blur the lines, and that was one of my favorite aspects about this movie. And now on a quick side note, I want to share a story with you. At the time this movie takes place, Sharon Tate was married to Roman Polanski, who's a director, and he fled to Europe in the 1970s after he did some very bad things in America where he's never allowed to come back or else he goes to prison. A few years ago, back in 2017, I was attending the Zurich Film Festival overseas, and after a film, I was walking down an alleyway. All of a sudden, these 2 doors fly open, security guards come out, and then strolling out comes Roman Polanski. He's about this tall, he jumps into a car and drives away. That was a very surreal moment, and it was bizarre. So that sort of relates to this movie, and let's get back to the review. Now, one other aspect I really enjoyed about this movie and most Tarantino films is the comedy. I love his comedy style in his films. At times it's very subtle, and at other times it's very dark. And speaking of that, let's talk about Leonardo DiCaprio's character, who's a washed-up TV Western actor who's seen his better days, and he's pretty much having a midlife crisis about his career. And there's one scene in this film that's phenomenal in every single way, where he just loses his shit inside of his movie trailer. I loved every second of it. His character's utterly insane at times, and he just wants to stay relevant. He's also an alcoholic, but when he wants to be, he's also a pretty good actor. And I loved that balance between all those different traits, and I sort of related to it, because I make YouTube videos, I don't stay as relevant as I could, but I want to. I'm not so much an alcoholic. I do like caffeine, but yeah, I related to it. Now, Brad Pitt in this film, who plays Hollywood stunt double and best friend to DiCaprio, was probably my favorite character in this movie. His character sort of has this really laid-back vibe. It almost reminded me of his character in Inglourious Basterds just a little bit. He's super laid-back and chill, but he does whatever he wants and says whatever he wants, and he doesn't take shit from anyone, and he's a badass throughout this movie. He just punches people in the face, and I really enjoyed the buddy vibe between both of these characters. Some of the best moments in this movie is when they're just driving around, or hanging out, or some of the more subtle moments where they're just watching TV shows. The film also features Margot Robbie, and she doesn't necessarily have the largest role in this movie as Sharon Tate. She has a few extended scenes throughout this film, but I think the main purpose behind her role in this film, I think Tarantino wanted to showcase how caring and kind of a human being she was. And while we're on the topic of Margot Robbie, Tarantino loves to show women's feet in his movies. Hear me out just for 1 second. Throughout this movie, there's a few very long, extended scenes with women putting their feet up right in front of the frame of the camera, where it's front and center in focus, and they just have their bare feet in front of the camera as they're talking or watching a movie for multiple minutes at a time. And Tarantino loves feet. Well, it's not a complaint, it's just an observation. Quentin Tarantino loves feet. We all have our things, and I just thought I'd share that with you. Let's keep going. This is a slow burn movie. It's 2 hours and 41 minutes long, and at times you can really feel the runtime adding up. I enjoyed the movie, but you could have easily cut 10 minutes out of this movie. There's a few scenes throughout the film that really slow down the pace of the film, especially in the second act. There's one segment that dedicates a lot of time to a character doing something, and it completely kills the momentum going into the climax of the movie. But we'll talk about the climax in just 1 second. And like I already said, this film's narrative is all over the place, much like a lot of other Tarantino films. But the thing is, with films like Pulp Fiction or Django Unchained or Reservoir Dogs, that unique narrative blends a little bit better and the pacing is better compared to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. In this movie, it feels like a lot of starting and stopping and starting and stopping rather than just this free flow of energy throughout the entire movie. But then in the third act of the movie, it's so great and over the top, and I loved every second of it, that it almost made me forget my negatives with the movie. Up until the third act or the last half hour of the movie, I was really thinking about giving this movie a B+. I really enjoyed it, but I had some negatives. And then those last 30 minutes, well, they just blew my hair back like that. But after the movie was over, I felt really fulfilled. And I'm going to give this movie an A. I don't think it's Tarantino's best movie. I don't think it's his most rewatchable movie. But it's a pretty darn good movie. And I just love movies like this because there's moments that matter and characters that are memorable, and there's things and subtleties, and it's all culminated into a story that makes you feel something, and by the end of it, you're just on the edge of your seat, and it's a really good theater experience, and just thinking about it sort of makes me want to watch it again on 4K Blu-ray when it comes out. Like I said, it's not a perfect movie, and it has a lot of flaws, but if a movie's job is to immerse you into a story and make you feel something, well, I think this movie did that. And if you guys want to feel something hard and awesome, well, check out these awesome metal posters from Displate. What'd you think I was going to say? If you're a fan of movie posters or one-sheets or just awesome artwork, check out the designs at Displate.com. They're movie posters, but they're printed on metal. They have thousands of awesome designs, and all three of these retro movie posters actually came from Displate. I put them back there. There's RoboCop, Back to the Future, and Jaws. The metal posters come in all shapes and sizes, like this Terminator poster right here, which is awesome and phenomenal in every way. Look at that. Or if you're in the mood for some Tarantino movie posters, they have a large selection of movies related to Tarantino, like Pulp Fiction, or one of my personal favorite classic films of all time, Taxi Driver. And the best thing about these posters is they don't screw on the wall. You don't have to nail them in. You just take this little magnet, stick it to your wall, and the poster attaches right to it. I have a ton of these things hanging up throughout my apartment, and the magnets make it super easy to hang or adjust or replace it with a different poster. So if you're like me and you're a huge fan of movie posters, definitely check out Displate.com and use promo code TheFlickPick to save 15% off your entire order. I'll put the link down below and the promo code. Check it out if you want to. And before I go, I have a question for you, and let me know down below, what did you think about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, or what is your favorite Quentin Tarantino movie and why? As always, guys, thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe. That way I can see you next time.